my idea was to create an app for parents to make hard conversations easy between them and their youth. So I developed my app ekanary. I didn't develop it, Asher Software did, but in kind of designing it and thinking of the application, I wanted a place where parents could go that could be the hub for them to better be able to know what's going on with their youth, teenagers, kids, whatever were the lines, and for them to know that they're not alone, and also to give them the tools to be able to then, when they feel educated and empowered, go off and connect further with their youth. So that's the idea that I entrusted. It was like a 3-part process in an app that I gave to Asher and was like, can we do this? My idea for ekanary, making hard conversations easy, that came from a lot of youth work. I've been in the field of youth work for the past 6 years, and what I've been noticing is there's this gap between parents, educators, youth, and any other social worker of sorts, where youth want their parents to know things, but they're not exactly sure how to tell them, and they don't know how their parents would react, and there's a lot of fear around that. And then there's parents who don't necessarily know what's going on or how to start the right conversation. And then you get educators that are trying to bridge that gap, but I think oftentimes they forget that teachers are so responsible for curriculum and class management and making sure that at the end of the education, not only are they well-rounded citizens, but academically speaking, they're able to have every opportunity at the palm of their hands. So moving it back, why ekanary, how did I come up with this idea, was I saw a gap in what's going on right now with mental health and youth and teenagers and social media and healthy relationships and self-esteem. I saw the gap between youth and their parents, and I really wanted to be able to bridge that just a little bit more. So my first steps starting this project were, I think, a little different. I started by actually coming up with my idea, and then I went to a startup weekend. And for those not familiar with startup weekends, they're all over the world, but you can go for a weekend and you pay like $75, I think that's what I paid at the time. And you get to be in a room with developers, marketers, really anybody, and then you with your idea, and you pitch that idea, and if people like it, then you can develop it over the weekend. The reason why I'm glad that I did that is kind of having like a test is first to see how would it look, how would I design it, could I even lead a project like that? And then what else? And then after kind of developing something to show for myself, I took it out to the community and I asked everyone and anyone, what do you think of this for parents? So market validation was really huge and important. It's also something that I didn't think would be, because I didn't want to have to go ask a whole bunch of people. There was a day where I would literally go and survey people at soccer fields and ask parents, and so many were like, I don't want to answer this. It's like, okay, namaste, that's fine. But starting out, it was really coming up with the idea, having something to show for it, and pumping it out into the community, and then going from there with designing, hiring, funding, and I think that's a question I'll get to. Originally with this idea, I thought I was going to be doing a web-based platform. So when I was hiring originally for ekanary, I was looking for a full stack developer, and that was great, but I would meet so many individuals who didn't meet my funding criteria, to be honest with you, or either didn't interview well. They weren't someone who meshed really well, and this is a little bit picky for me, but I want someone who, when I am giving them my project, they understand how important it is to me. And I think sometimes when you bring people on who are so separate from it, and who don't understand why something either might work or they don't even believe in it, that's when trouble can get started, either in managing them or getting things done in time. And I didn't want to have to deal with any of those management issues. I wanted someone who really valued what I was trying to put out there and got at least a little excited about it. So why I went with a software house was I actually pivoted towards an app, and then I was looking around, could not find any developers that I felt comfortable with, and I think it's really important to feel comfortable that someone's going to be able to deliver with what you're trusting them with. And so originally I wasn't looking at a software house. I was avoiding that until the cows came home. But then I was introduced to Asher Software and Michael by one of my business advisors, Allison, and it was perfect. It was amazing. So yes, I was incredibly surprised within the implementation process, if we're talking specific to developing the app, and how much I was able to understand and how much I had a say in everything. I think I was quite nervous even hiring someone on board, just specifically because I wanted to still be able to be part of that process of kind of seeing my vision come to life. And if you can't find someone who can help you walk you through that vision and what that looks like and why you'd be developing, let's say, on one software versus another. If you don't understand that and someone can't help you explain that, then I would say that they're the wrong person for you. I'm a person who asks many questions, and my biggest criteria is to be able to have them answered, and answered with dignity, because I don't know all the answers, and I don't feel, and I think actually in the business industry in general, speaking as a feminist, I think that oftentimes women can, in many situations, either be talked down to or assumed to know lesser, and I love when I can walk out of a meeting empowered and educated. And I think that's where I was very surprised with in the process and delighted, was that I could go into a meeting being like, Michael, I need to understand these two different softwares. I need to know why we're not going to be going with Swift and why we're going to be going with the other one that I already put the name. It's okay. And I had like a full presentation put out in front of me being like, this is why we would use this instead of this. This is why you're going to want to use this. This is which this one does. And the one that you want to go with is. And it was always my choice at the end of the day. But that there was a clear one that was obviously the right one that was put in front of me, but I felt very empowered and listened to and part of the process, and respected to be able to have my questions answered and what I needed. So that was probably the most delightful part of the development process for me, was feeling incredibly empowered step by step as to what was going on with the app. And so that I was just excited within the deliverables, and I felt educated too, so it was cool. I financed this project off of NRC IRAP funding. So I was looking into how to finance this project, and that one was actually probably the most stressful part of the entire app building process. I knew I didn't want to take out a loan. I knew I wanted funding, but I didn't want to give away shares in my company yet. And I ended up asking around about IRAP funding, and the first thing I heard from, I think, like 10 people is, you're probably not going to get that, don't apply for it. Well, whoop, we got it. So I went in and I was like, here's what I want to do. And I think what people sometimes forget is that even if your project is small and you're starting out small, that there are amenities available to you. So I was really able to capitalize on some of the smaller grants, which has been amazing. But there's like the Youth Green grant and stuff like that. But I was able to get a specific one for this project. And speaking towards that, it was really great too, because it's a bit stressful sometimes if you're either working with government or even third-party funding elsewhere, whether that be investors, to be able to get certain claims in or however that process is going. What was really nice is that along that way in working with the government, the Astra software was very understanding and also really able to deliver when I had really, really quick deadlines for certain things. That was really appreciative on my behalf to have that happen. That was great. What would I say to anyone who wants to build an app? Sweet Jesus, prepare for many hours. And really love what you're doing. So if you're preparing to go make an app, love what you're doing. Understand the difference between criticism and feedback. Love what you're doing, understand feedback. This is a hard one for me because this has probably been the most scary project I've ever done, because I've never built an app before. And that doesn't mean that you can't, that means you should. So if you're building an app, get lots of sleep, don't take things personally. Know that when you pump it out there, you just gotta get it out there. This is what I'm learning right now, and that it's gonna turn out great. It's gonna be fine. You're catching me at the tail end of it launching, so I'm like, it's going to be fine. But it will be. It's really fun. Have fun with it and know that this is just another thing that you're putting out there. But I think really loving what you're doing is the number one thing about it. So if you really are passionate and you really know that what you have is something quite special, start from there, because if you don't, I honestly don't feel like anyone can make it through that process, because it's always continuously staying on top of things, deciding what you're going to do for the next step if you run into any walls. I think you need that behind motivation, that fire in the belly to be able to get through those kind of things. And that's what I recommend to an entrepreneur or someone starting an app. Absolutely. I would recommend Astra software to anyone who's looking to develop an app. I think it's really great, and it speaks to their company in general that I can come into it not having any technical education behind me and still feel incredibly empowered and educated within what I'm putting out there for my app, and be able to really speak to it powerfully if I'm going into advisory meetings or meetings with executives and residents in certain advisory places who are in development. I can answer their questions. That's huge for me. I would recommend them because they're timely, they care, they want to see a good product at the end of the day. They're not just going to ship you something that you think that you want. I think that was something for me too, is I'm like, what happens if I run out of time, or what happens if what comes back is not something I like. I felt like there was never that pressure, that they actually do want to see you happy with your product at the end of the day. And I've heard so many horror stories of people sending their work away and getting just like the worst product back. And because again, I speak about passion and about you're literally putting out your baby. This is what you've like thought about. This is what you've been wanting to create for so long, and you're putting that into someone else's hands. Again, it took me 3 months to find the right developers, and I'm so glad I went with Astra Software, because I did not worry at all that whole time. Like I worried about my app, like much and all, like the ins and outs of it, but I never worried about the process of it being developed or the quality of it. It always came out amazing. So if you want to be educated, if you want to have an amazing product at the end of the day and something that you're proud of and they're proud of, I'd highly recommend going with Astra Software on that. It would be amazing. Yeah. Always go with someone who you're comfortable with and who you know is going to really want to deliver on your app and actually cares about the product they're putting forward and the people who they're working with. And that's Astra Software. That's what they do. They really do care about their clients, and they care about making sure that it's exactly what they needed and what they wanted. And I really appreciate that, because I feel like some people don't. And so it was really amazing to be able to find a company that's quite passionate about delivering on literally everything. So thank you.